Good day. Today I would like to talk about a very powerful tool in the hands of dairy farmers, especially dairy breeders, that can enable them to reach their goals, their breeding goals, very efficiently and very fast. It's a tool called SADairybulls.com. That's a very powerful search engine on the web where the breeding values of all animals in South Africa taking part in Logic's milk can be searched, as well as globally bulls that's available for AI and otherwise through the interbull conversions. Studbook has introduced this very powerful tool in terms of searching for animals complying to breeding objectives recently or a while ago, but has now expanded it to also include a very powerful mating program for that purpose. Just a little bit of background on what's so important, what is important in terms of breeding in dairy cattle, and I would like to take you through a few steps. Breeding is all about three major events to enable one to sustain profitability, in this case then dairy cattle. So it all starts with a breeding goal. One has to have a very firm goal, and the goal is usually aimed around the return on investment, or investment obviously. Most important investment is would be your cows in your herd, and to have an optimal return on investment. I will not dwell on the particulars of how do you set a goal and so forth, but a goal results in criteria to be used and objectives. That means what are the minimum requirements of animals that they have to comply with in terms of reaching the overall goal. The next step is to use pedigree information, performance information of individual cows, and also lately genomic information to predict the genetic merit of each animal, and this obviously is not just for cows but also for bulls. Once the genetic merit of the number of traits are known, this is usually combined in a so-called selection index or value, where the economic value of each trait is considered. For example, the payment system, the expenses in a dairy herd and so forth, and also the so-called genetic covariance structure, that is the heritabilities and the genetic correlations amongst all the traits that the breeding values are available for. Once this is then available, the genetic economic merit is then used to rank animals according to the objectives. And then the last step then would be to use this information in optimizing selection and mating plans. The first question then would be, how will this mating program as part of SADairybulls.com assist dairy farmers in reaching their objectives and goals in dairy cattle? So just as a recap, one has to set your goals, rank animals according to these objectives, rank the available selection candidates, that's females and males, and obviously in dairy cattle males play a much more important role through artificial insemination. Then put them in mating plans to optimize the reaching of your goals. So SA Dairy Bulls, or the mating program in SA Dairy Bulls, then will do this for you as a livestock breeder, or in this case dairy breeder. It assists you in setting the breeding goals, or you have your own breeding goals set for you if you are part of a breeder society and you use the breeding objectives that the society dictates. It will also then assist you in searching globally for selection candidates, especially bulls, conforming to these breeding goals. And one can then basically use this assistance to get the best bulls available that your money can buy to use on your dairy cows. The next one very important part is then maximization of reaching these breeding goals through optimal matings. A very important part of this mating program in SADairybulls.com is also the restriction of inbreeding through optimal matings. I would now like to take you through a few steps on SADairybulls.com to show you how this can be achieved. Obviously, your landing page would look something like this. And you can run the search engine as indicated here without logging in, but to enable you to use the mating program, you have to be a user on the system, which you have to register with SA Statboek. And once you are a user, you can then use the login and make use of the facilities of the mating program. So I will be logging in as myself. You will also see that I have more rights. I can actually access a lot of different herds. For that matter, I will just use one herd that's willing to for us to use this herd as an example in the process. If you are only open for one herd, your own herd, you'll obviously not have access to all the different breeds. In this case, I have access to a number of herds. As mentioned, this is now an example of a Jersey herd. As mentioned, the basic steps would be to define your own breeding goal. Then select those animals that you would see as possible selection candidates, and here you can also do your ranking the way you would like to do it. Also then bulls as possible selection candidates. Run your mating program where you have optimized the mating. Obviously you start with the possible inbreeding coefficient of the progeny, and then look at the results. That will assist you to see how close you got to optimizing your breeding objectives. So the first step then is to define the breeding criteria that you want to select animals for. You will notice that you can set the maximum inbreeding that you will allow in these matings. Very important. You will also see that you have a choice of different breeding objectives or so-called selection indices. This obviously only applies to registered cows because this is a function of the respective breeder societies. In the case for the Jerseys, for example, here you have a choice of the SA INET, which is their global selection index, or a cheese merit index for those herds producing milk to milk buyers that base their payment system on for example, mostly on protein and butterfat composites, and then also fluid merit index if you are being paid in terms of the drink milk market. Or you can define your own selection index. In this case, this herd has basically defined its own selection index, and this is just one example. So you can see the allocation of the different components in terms of the payment system, but also those more productive cows. So in this example, you can see this breeder has the percentage of emphasis in milk is 20%, somatic cell count 6%, obviously negative, the lower the better. Calving interval 15%, so fertility, herd fertility. Protein 16%, protein kilogram percentage. Herd life, very important, this herd 17%. Count, feed and legs, other index, and also maybe favoring smaller cows in terms of with height. So this is an example. Obviously your criteria should count up to 100%, so that each of these factors make up the whole. So in this case we have now set up the breeding criteria, so the breeding goal is being ticked off. If this was not the case, there would have been a red cross there. The next step would be to select the females that needs to be included in our breeding program. So I will just redefine, and you will see there's a choice of animals to be included in this breeding program. You can or the tick box that's usually ticked is all active heifers and cows, but you can select just heifers, just cows, females born between 2 certain dates, or days since last calving. If you have to AI, let's say from 60 days onwards or 80 days onwards, you can do that, or calving date. But you also have a very nice search engine where you can also filter your females based on their breeding values. I will use breeding value indices. It's just easier, and you can then use any of these criteria to actually select females from the herd. What I will do now is I will just select all active females and not search or just use a few of them. Here you can see a list of all the females in the herd. You can also, if you want to, you can also find out more about the specific female by clicking on the female herself, and it will open up an extra window in your browser. Here you can see this female very conveniently, everything about breeding values, the selection index, etc. So you have a full information on this female in this case. Okay, so let's just go back to what we were doing. If we want to select all these females and continue, it will bring us back then to our main menu, where we can do or go on to the next step. The next step obviously is to choose the bulls that we would like to use on these females in a mating program. As an example, I'm going to add. I already had. I'm adding some bulls to the list. I'm going to do a search and see what's available in the world that I can select on. I am going to use a filter then to search for bulls based on the breeding value indices. I can then look for bulls that might comply to whatever my selection criteria is. In this case, we use our own customized index. If you can remember correctly, then this is the way we defined it, and we can search for bulls that comply to this criteria. So let me just open up the filters. You can see I can set the accuracy, the birth year of the bulls, the country. Let's just be different, and we are looking for Danish bulls that were born after 2010, and let's see what's available in terms of our selection index. So I'm just going to click two bulls that's hopefully not too related. We add the selected bulls to our list, and you will see we started with 2 bulls. We now have 4 bulls as a possibility, and it's also then possible to check in terms of the genetic level of our females that's eligible for breeding, and the 4 bulls that we selected for breeding, and you can see a marked difference in the selection values for these animals. The next step, very important then, is to execute the inbreeding coefficient. Given that we use each and every bull theoretically on each cow, and we can run the inbreeding coefficients and see what the calculated inbreeding coefficients will be in such a case. So this is then the results of doing all these matings, and you can see these are the four bulls, and theoretically they are mated to each of the cows, and it ends up with a value, a so-called inbreeding coefficient value. You can also see on average, if you go right down to the bottom, what the average inbreeding coefficient of each bull will be in terms of mating with each of the females in the herd, and you will see this first bull on average will result in a 4.27% inbreeding. This bull, for example, is 8.22%. It's also possible where you have all inbreeding coefficients are colored in red for those that exceed our limitations that we have set initially. I'm going to use one possible breeding candidate or candidates where the breeding or this mating will result in a 9.35%. If I click on this specific combination, it opens up a pedigree tree for me, and I can actually follow the tree to see how this result came about in the process. Good. We have the result here, as we've said. It's also possible to download a so-called CSV file that you can pull into your spreadsheet where you can use as a closer examination of the different columns and the result of this mating in terms of inbreeding. We basically has now run the inbreeding coefficients, possible inbreeding coefficients, and the next step then is a very important one of running the optimized mating. Now the program that's available to breeders is called ORDA, which will then optimize the matings. The breeder now has a choice to say how many matings per bull will be allowed on average. It's also possible to set it for each and every individual bull. So just to optimize this, I will allow 500 matings per bull, and I will also allow the program to do a first, second and third choice of each bull. It's recommended that this is run offline so that the breeding is optimized. If you're in a hurry, you can run it online. In large matings, the system will automatically go offline, and you will immediately then receive an email with the results, or the freezing of the screen of your browser will also stop. So I'm going to run this offline so that and we will then look at the results. Okay, we now have the results available after running it. You basically have two reports that's available. The one is called the best possible matings, and here you will see that the best possible matings has been given for each cow, and that's available for you, and also the resultant or the expected result. It's also then possible to download or to open a so-called PDF report that enable you to look at the results. Just download it quickly. You can also use this report close to your semen flask. That will enable you to make use of the report in your matings. I just want to open this quickly. You will see in this case then the report is available. The mating, these are our 4 bulls, their own inbreeding coefficient, their breeding values, and also the breeding objective of these bulls. Then a summary of how the matings will be made. You will see that there was basically an equal distribution of the matings, the resultant inbreeding, and then also the progeny expectation. So in this case, you see the cows was at a value of 96.95, and the resulting mating will result in a 101.05. So there's a lift in terms of that. These are the success of each of the 4 bulls. Also how the genetic merit changed. These were the genetic indices of the dams, and these are the resulting or the expected selection indices of the progeny. Also in terms of inbreeding, how successful the inbreeding was. You will see we were not too successful in this case, but these were the inbreeding of the dams, going up as high as 19%. You will also see that those in red, or the expected progeny in red, are exceeding the inbreeding that we were looking for, but in any case there was a reduction in 69% of the cases. So then the results or the options available for mating, each cow and with what bull she should be mated in this case. So basically, to get back to what we were saying, this is a very powerful tool that can be used by breeders and other dairy farmers that are part of Logic Smoke. Thank you very much for your attention.